Well, now you're joining us for part 2, and we're through the gates. And you know what? I don't talk about this too much, but see these little cement things up on the eaves of the house? Gary's made a lot of those. And what that is, he set those up for the birds. So in the spring, the birds have multiple nests. He's had flycatchers nest in there. And of course, your house finches, like mad, nest in these nests. And see? There's the nest. Isn't that cool? He made a whole bunch of them, just these little, he made wire baskets, these little wire baskets, and he covered them with cement. He didn't paint them or anything, attached them to, well, he made a wire basket attached to a piece of wood, see? With holes drilled. Then he covered it with cement, let it dry, and he stuck a whole bunch of them all over around the house. And now we end up with all these birds having babies all over. So you wonder where those birds are coming from? Well, that's it. But they feel, you know, they're safe here in the garden. So they nest here. And why not? They got food and water and everything here. Okay, now we're in part 2 of the garden through the gates. So let's continue. And this way you don't have to sit for an hour and a half and watch a garden tour. Okay, let's go on. Look at this tomato plant. It's growing in this container. Now, see that container is cracked. Yes, it is cracked. I found that in the trash. I try to salvage everything. What I should do here, let me see if I can get down there, is I should put something there so it won't break. But right now it's doing really good. It's probably going to break. I'll probably have to replace it. But I found that in the trash. So somebody obviously was using it for maybe kids' toys or something in their yard. They were loading it up with stuff, but it didn't have soil in it. So it dried out. So I figured for now, I just sat it there and it's doing its job. So we'll see. But if you get a container, let's say good ones, and I find really good ones at the thrift store, and they're soft, once you put soil in it, they'll go for a long, long time. Because the soil, especially the soft ones, you know, wait a minute, you know, let me back up on that. I've discussed that. The containers you want the flexible ones. See how it moves? Yeah, that's the handle. And I found this in the trash too. But see how it moves? You want the flexible ones. These buckets are hard plastic. Hard plastic ones will break down quicker than the flexible ones. And if you get them new, you can go get them at a lot of your big box stores. They're cheap. They're like $4, $5. See if they've got any without lids. They'll sell them to you half price because people want lids. They want to store things in them. You don't want the lids. When they're soft and you plant in them and you put soil and you're composting in place, they'll go for many, many years. But you want the soft plastic. So when I go to the thrift store and I see them and I tap on them and they're the hard plastic, I don't touch those. I don't want those because I know those will not last long. You can grow in them, there's nothing wrong with it, but they won't last that long because they're hard plastic, so they will dry out. The soft plastic means there's more oil in them and the way it was made, and make sure to check the numbers. You just don't want a 3. Usually they're 2, 4, or 5. Most of them are 5, I believe, and some are 2. Those are perfectly fine to grow in. You want the soft plastic ones because they're the ones that are going to last. Don't go with the hard plastic ones because those won't last as long. If you get them for free and you want to use them, then use them and throw them out when they break. But look at the tomato plant. Definitely going to do cuttings off of this one. And this is just the greatest plant. It just keeps going and going, and it's just throwing so many tomatoes. Gary's sitting here all the time or standing here eating and eating. Look all through here. So it is doing really, really well. And the birds are really keeping the hornworms down. We found a couple this year, a few here and there, because now the orioles, which are the big feeders on them, even though mockingbirds will eat them too, we still have a lot of mockingbirds. The orioles, when they're feeding their babies, they just look through the tomato plants and they are looking for all those hornworms, whether big or small. They will take off with this huge monster in their mouth. They love them. I don't like them. But they're the ones keeping the hornworms in check. So I have not had to use any type of chemical, any type of pesticide on it. Works out great. So that's the tier I've got. So I've got a bucket back there, which is a hard plastic. It's not going to last that long, but you know, I had it for free, so I used it. So I've got the tomato plant, I believe. I'm not sure if it's growing in that one. It is. Okay, the tomato plant is growing in the bucket. Then I've got this container. So if I water the bucket, it waters the whole thing. But you can water it, you can hit the whole thing, and then I've got pots there. So I've got got a bucket there. I've got this plastic container, a smaller one that way, and then I've got another one that way, and it kind of gives lift to it, and it gives me more places to plant different things. You can go higher and higher, go as high as you want. This is an old squash plant getting ready to be pulled out, but I think it's still trying. See? Had to cover it with tulle because the rabbits have been eating it, and I know it's the rabbits eating it. So we'll see. If I would have had some really good mature plants, those will go all winter. And then I could have had, like last year, tons of zucchini. But most of mine got deadheaded. I have too many rabbits, but we'll see. Right now I don't mind them. I'll just leave them be. But the rabbits do the biggest damage, bigger than rats. Because the rats will come and touch the tulle that I'll put around somewhere, and they think, oh gosh, there's traps here. We're going to another garden, and they'll leave. The rabbits will just keep testing. They'll see, okay, she doesn't have tulle on this, I'll eat this. They won't eat anything that's covered in tulle. And that one that I showed you didn't have tulle. That's why they chewed that one up in the beginning. They won't eat it, but they'll stick around. They'll just look for something else, where a rat will tend to leave and not eat because they think you're trying to trick them. And so they think, oh, we found that they're trapping us, so we're not going to do that. They're really smart animals. This is the papaya that I pulled right out of the other container. Just yanked it up and pulled it. I took that pot. It has no bottom. I actually dug a hole. I put all kinds of kitchen scraps in there, put the pot in there with no bottom, filled it up with native soil, and stuck the plant there, and it is thriving. I left a couple leaves on top. Look at that. It is doing really good. It's going to take time. They do take time to grow, but you know, there was almost no root system on when I pulled it out. It had a small root. So right now what it's doing, it's concentrating on making its roots. That's the most important thing. Remember, it's got to make roots as big as that, and it did not have roots the way I pulled it out. But it will set root, and once it sets root, it will take off. And you've all seen my papayas. Came up from kitchen scraps and composting in place. And I'll go quickly over the story. They came up, and these two trees just took off and started growing papayas right away. Never thought I'd ever grow papayas. And oh, there's another one Gary's got to harvest. And we couldn't figure out why these two were doing so well and growing massive papayas, and that one over there wasn't growing anything. It would grow, a couple little flowers would start. They looked really bad when they had a few flowers on it. I mean, the flowers were bad, and we just couldn't figure out why that one over there was dropping the flowers, or really only had a couple here and there. And these two trees were growing so good. Well, it was the containers. Gary put this here right away for me to grow some zucchini, and I was composting in place here, kitchen scraps, leaves, garbage, all that. And so this tree, look at the trunk on it. This tree, and I know they're not trees, so you don't have to correct me. This papaya plant was feeding off my compost bins. So was that one. And that's when we realized they really are heavy feeders, and they were pulling all the nutrients out of the kitchen scraps, you know, trash going in there. So as soon as I set up another one over here, this one just took off immediately. I actually started with this flower pot here, cut the hole on the bottom, and a papaya came up just from the kitchen scraps. I didn't plant that papaya in there, but just that one little pot with a hole on the bottom and putting kitchen scraps in there, this plant started immediately throwing papayas. Immediately. The flowers were beautiful. You could see the difference in the flowers right away. And we've been getting all kinds of papayas off of this one. And that's what we have told people. There was a guy that drops the wood chips off, and I think they're having success now. They had so many plants in their yard, but they said they're not getting any fruit, and their trees are bigger than ours. I said, are you feeding them? And he didn't even know what I was talking about. They weren't doing anything. So we told him, start putting tubs around and throwing all your kitchen scraps. Whatever you buy from the grocery store, it doesn't even matter. Food from the refrigerator that you don't even know what it is anymore. You can't recognize it. Cooked, raw, whatever you've got, something you're throwing away. If it's something you could have eaten at one time, you throw it in there. And then throw some, if you don't want it to, it doesn't really smell, it breaks down right away. But if you think it smells, throw some native soil on top, or wood chips, or leaves, or grass cuttings, as long as there's no Roundup in it. And it will break down, leach into the ground, and the plants will love it. And that's what I have told everybody. You've got to feed these plants. And once you feed them, you'll end up with so much. You know, some people have said to me, oh, you're so lucky. You have a green thumb. A few years ago, before I started this, my thumb was black. I would look at a plant and it would die. No. You know, it's the interest. You get the interest in what you're doing, and it starts to become fun. You get a little success. This is learning in progress. I am still learning. I believe you me. I don't know that much. I'm on YouTube too, watching and studying and comparing. You know, you go watch all these videos and like one person's doing it one way and one person's doing it another way, and you got 10 videos with a dozen different ways. You know, and the thing is, you got to figure out what's going to work for you, your area, your lifestyle, your yard. What is going to work for you? Can you grow papayas in a small pot? Obviously, yes, if you wanted to compost in place. These papaya plants, yes, their roots have left and gone into the ground. But if you were on a cement patio, remember the roots will touch the air and air prune, and you wanted to really grow a papaya, you would put it in a good sized pot and you would compost in place in it, right in it. You dig a hole and you got banana peels and stuff, you compost in place right in it, and you will grow papayas. Here I compost in place around it because they've already left. They have left the room. They have left that pot. So you can always, I really am determined to say that you can always figure something out if you're determined to grow something, if you want something bad enough. But you know, there's always other choices of other things you can grow too. And am I growing new things? Yeah, I am. I bought some leeks. We grew it once. I didn't even know what a leek was. Isn't that terrible? I'm a city girl. Gary bought some leeks a couple years ago. To me, I thought, ooh, let's keep walking. Leeks. What the heck is a leek? Isn't that bad? That's terrible. I never grew up eating a leek. So he says he's buying leeks and he planted them. I had no idea what it was. Didn't even bother looking it up. This was quite a few years ago already. And he brings in leeks one day and he says, here, did you want to cook these? I said, what do you do with them? He said, well, they're like onions. My gosh, they were good. I couldn't believe how good they are. I mean, kids don't even know where their food comes from. I didn't know what a leek was. Now I want to grow leeks, and I want to grow something that's going to grow good in my yard. So I'm experimenting with this variety I'm ordering because I heard they do really good, and then I will collect my own seeds. Let's see what's going on in here. These are overgrown. Look how big these trunks are. Technically, this red Swiss chard should come out, but I'm going to leave it. This is the truck bed that grew all that spaghetti squash that time, to the point where we don't even want to look at spaghetti squash. Nobody wanted to look at spaghetti squash. They got sick of spaghetti squash. But right now I'm just using it for different things, and I have another idea. So this spring I'm going to probably set containers in here. The reason is the rabbits cannot get in here. Birds are fine, can get in here. Rats can get in here, but if I put some tulle around it, rats won't want to go in there. And actually, I don't even know if the rats can easily get in there because the way the truck bed is. So I'm going to try some different things, but I've got garlic chives growing in there, walking onions growing in there. There was radishes that went to seed. They're growing in there. Of course, the red Swiss chard is growing in there, and it's really an old plant. I'll decide on what I want to do. I'll either pull it out, or I'll see in the spring, whatever I want to do. I can either pull it out, I'll collect a bunch of seeds, and I'll see if I want to trim it down or pull it out. I might just clean it up, trim it down. I've got some red Swiss chard that is both green. See, it's kind of green and red, and then the red one. You know what's interesting? Gary doesn't like the red. He said that he can't eat it raw, that there's something in the red that kind of burns his mouth. I don't have that problem, but I can make juice out of it and use it in my green drinks and stir fry, but eating it raw, he can eat the green Swiss chard, but he said he doesn't like eating the red, so we'll see. But I'm going to keep the red anyways because I know it's got a lot of beta carotene and good nutrients in it, and like I said, I put it in our juices. All right, it's growing in here. See, these are the baby seeds that have fallen in here. See, they have red stems. But I'm going to put a lot of containers in here. So this way, it's going to be its own little ecosystem. They'll be able to grow along the side, and I'll compost in all these little containers. I might put some bigger containers and layer it and go up higher. And maybe I'll even put a spaghetti squash in here. So we'll see what happens. And from there, I'll decide what I'm going to do. There's no hurry. It's not like I need to plant something now. I've got so much. I can think. I have time to take a breath. I just did a video. I don't know if I'm going to leave it up or not. I probably will. Sitting at night, reminiscing on what's going on. I have a really, really busy, crazy schedule. I should be retiring at my age. In Christmas time, because I do artwork too, and I do mini artwork. So I'm doing that at Christmas time, and I'm going crazy, and I get very little sleep. I'm going to set up tubs here. So I'm scatterbrained a little bit because I'm lack of sleep. But you know what? I eat good. So I think that's what keeps me going. I remember telling the doctor once during Christmas, there's something wrong with me. If I sit down, I fall asleep. I have a sleeping disorder. And he said, you don't have a sleeping disorder. Your body found out you sat down for a minute and it wants to shut down. So I do get sleep. I probably get 4 to 6 hours depending on the day. And it's only this time of the year. Come around December 22nd, everything goes back to normal. I get to chill out, watch Hallmark on the Christmas channel for round the clock, take a breath, and think about what I'm going to do for the new year. And that's what I'm doing. Plus, I also do all the holiday dinners and stuff, which I love to do. That is not a burden. I absolutely love to cook. I'm not real big on entertaining. You're not going to get me out there entertaining. My sister's really big. She's really good at talking. Believe it or not, I'm not. But I love cooking and being in the background. That's what I like. I am going to set up containers all through here. Gary got rid of his big pile of wood chips. As you can see, there's plenty of piles of wood chips all over. But he has been moving the wood chips, and he's going to move the one pile that we'll see in a second behind me. And I'm going to set up containers here. Now, why am I setting up more containers here? And these are cheap containers. I don't like those colors, but I use them anyways because I'm finding them in the trash. People throw them away, so as long as they don't look like they had anything bad in them, it just looks like they stored things in them. And I got that from a guy that was moving. He gave me a whole bunch. I'm just going to line them up here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because Gary put that hose in for me. So I don't have to drag a hose 200 and something feet, 300 feet anymore. And I've got a hose right there. I'm going to take advantage of it. I haven't drilled any holes in that container because I'm not sure yet if the holes will be on the bottom or if the holes will be a little bit up. But being that I have a hose right there, I may put the holes on the bottom. The advantage of putting the holes on the bottom there is that it will feed the soil better and the earthworms will be able to easily go back and forth. That's why I might put the holes on the bottom. Sometimes I don't put the holes on the bottom because of my friend, let me swing around, the pepper tree. Because this pepper tree, when there are holes on the bottom, sends its roots in my containers and sucks the life out of everything. So that's why I have to decide. Look at this tree. I've talked about this tree. Half of this tree, when we got this house, fell down. Look at the size of this trunk back here. Yeah, this is Gary's man cave. Look at that. Half the tree fell down the hill. And I don't know if I ever took videos of that or not, but Gary worked for a week or two cutting it up. And I think this was before the wood chips, long before the wood chips. Oh yes, absolutely long before the wood chips. But half the tree fell down and Gary said, I'm going to have to drop the tree. And I said, oh, it's such a beautiful tree. And I know that pepper trees are invasive and they bother gardens and stuff, but look at this. This is like the tree of life. This tree, all spring and all summer, are full of nests, all kinds of bird nests. I believe the goldfinches nest in here, the hummingbirds nest in here, all kinds of birds nest in here. And birds that are traveling through stop here and roost here. It's absolutely gorgeous. I said, there's got to be something. Don't drop it yet. You can't even tell, but like I said, half that tree fell. It's split in half. It's actually healed. It had a giant limb that had fallen off. See, it was I guess it was two big limbs, and this just split. So I said, well, let's wait. I mean, right now, as I'm talking to you, there are birds in this tree all over, all these little birds. Look at that. I don't even know what that is. But this tree is like the tree of life, and it's always full of birds. So I said, let's leave it for now, and it was struggling. It was really bad. So something happened, I think, what saved this tree's life. A very strange thing happened. Around that time, Gary started getting the wood chips, and that's when he was bringing it in himself and dumping the piles here. And at the same time that was going on, my daughter decided to order for the birthday party she had here from one of the kids, one of those splash things where they come and they bring this great big thing. It's got a slide, a water slide, and the whole thing. And she set up the water slide, and of course that had to be filled with water. So that was set up here. It's like a football field here. And it was set up here, and between the wood chips being here and that water slide here for that one weekend, and the kids were using it and the water's running and pouring out everywhere, this tree just started to come back to life. And now look at it. It is just, the wood chips now, of course, have changed the tree's life, because the wood chips now have been laid here, and it's very, very thick, and he has been spreading it down behind the tree as well. So it's on both places, in the front and behind, and the tree is just massive and beautiful. And no, we are not taking this tree out. This tree is staying. It's part of the property. The only way it would come out is if it literally fell out. And it's hanging off of a hill, and it's doing great. The wood chips have made it healthy, but that's the problem, is it will find places, and it can send its roots hundreds of feet. So there are ways you can maintain it, and we'll see if we have to. But right now, between the container gardening and the wood chips here, the tree is behaving itself, it seems like, somewhat. And it's okay. So that's why I've got to decide over there with the red containers, or it won't be all red, they'll be red and blue in different containers, whatever I put there. If I want to put the holes on the bottom, definitely if I put the holes on the bottom, this tree will send its roots in. What I could do, if I wanted to not care about that, is at the end of the season, the planting season, if the squash dies, or whatever, I could grab that container and yank it. That will break the roots. There's that way of doing it. If the roots go in there. So just by moving the container. If I don't want to be moving things, then the best thing at that point, dealing with vegetable plants, would, for me, because we're in a drier area, would be to put the holes a little bit up from the bottom, because there is no way any plant, especially a tree, any plant, can bring its roots up because it air prunes. The moment they would try and they won't, the roots would die. So that's why a lot of times, if you're having an issue with tree roots, if you bring the holes up, not on the very bottom, 1 inch up, any part up, as long as it touches air. But see, the tub is going to settle, so you may want to go 2 inches up. So I could even bury some of those tubs if I want to, 3 inches down, and make holes, let's say 3 inches up, so it looks like it's almost touching the ground. The earthworms, believe it or not, if you make good size holes, make a really good size hole, it doesn't have to be that big, smaller than a dime, half the size, they will crawl into the holes. That's amazing. I've seen that. The earthworms, they can, when it's damp, come out of the ground. And night crawlers, they will come out of the ground and they will go into your tubs. They'll even go up the side. So you don't have to worry about microbes or anything. They will find their way in, whether the holes are on the bottom or whether the holes are on the top. It doesn't matter. They will definitely find their way in. So I will decide when I get ready, or maybe I'll do them both ways. Maybe I'll put one with the holes on the side and one with the holes on the bottom. The advantage of putting the holes on the bottom is if I had a papaya plant grow in there, the papaya tree would send its roots down. Even an avocado tree would send its roots down. And, avocado tree, I just thought about that. It would send its roots down, and you could actually leave it there permanently. It would stay in the pot, but the roots would go into the ground. That's why you have to decide on how you want to do it and what you're going to plant in it. Now, I'm not planting orange trees there, or apple trees or anything like that, or planning on putting avocado trees in there. So the holes could be up a little bit. Then this tree would only be able to send its feeder roots underneath the containers. And let me tell you something, underneath the containers, you've got microbes and everything. That's why you can grow things next to containers, because the soil underneath those containers are going to be wonderful. So it will be sending its roots from this tree underneath those containers. And real quick, before I forget, because I'm almost done with this, there is the avocado tree. Let me zoom in. I have a special viewer that really reams me when I forget to put the avocado tree in the video. The avocado tree is doing great, and yes, for that viewer, I am leaving the avocado tree, which is going to make my life tough because that avocado tree is really pulling a lot of nutrients out of that truck bed. But for now, I will leave the avocado tree. It came up in the compost that I put in there, you know, kitchen scraps. There was avocado seed in there and it came up on its own. So we'll see what happens, but I'm leaving the avocado tree. So I've got a tree in my container. That's really good. But anyways, that's it on containers. So now it's up to you to decide whether you want the holes on the bottom or the top. If you put them, I shouldn't say, you know, on the side. Here's the advantage. If you put them on the side, let's turn around here. If you put them on the side like I did here, you can always go back and tip it if you don't like it and put them on the bottom. But once you put them on the bottom, you can't change it. So keep that in mind. These are on the side because of the tree roots. Not just those trees, but we got trees all around here. So all the trees will be looking. So they can send their roots so far. So for now, and because we're in Southern California, Zone 10A, and because we are so dry and we went 3 months without any rain, it actually is perfect to put it that way for me. Let me zoom in. It works out perfect for me to put the holes that way because if I don't come back here and water for a couple days, that inch or two will always have water in it and the plants will send their roots down to the water. When a plant is planted that way and there's soil and compost and everything in there, you don't have to worry because if the plant doesn't want that much water, it will, like you pull your feet in. If you're cold and you're pulling your feet in under a blanket because your feet got out of the blanket, you know, well, that's what it will do. It'll either send its roots down or it will pull its little feet in, its roots, and be away from the water if there's too much water. It works perfect. I've been doing this and I really like a lot of times having the holes a little bit higher. So for me, I know that my plants always have some sort of water. All these plants did really well that way. So either way works. Either way, there's no right or wrong way. It's what works for you. Obviously, if you're in an area where you're getting tons of rain, put the holes on the bottom. Let it keep draining because it will get waterlogged since it's getting too much water. But with us, we don't get enough rain. And here is the other moringa tree full of pods. Isn't this amazing? Beautiful tree. The hummingbirds come and the birds come. And then I've got celery on the bottom. I've got walking onions growing in there. I've got some squash trying to come through there. And then, of course, my cucumber, which had a falling back. I thought it was dying, but I realized the ants were trying to nest in there. So I got rid of the ants, and it's starting to set cucumber again. Ants can be, look at that. It's full of cucumber, all because I got rid of the ants. Look at all the new flowers and the new cucumbers growing. Look at that. I'm going to get a whole new batch of cucumbers. Look at this. I'm not even going to tell you how I got rid of the ants because people are going to scream at me. But I could not get rid of the ants. I was flooding it and everything, and they built a nest in there, and they were trailing all the way up the wall, up and down. I could not get rid of them. They were taking off the new flowers. They were putting their aphids there, and they were sucking the juices out of the baby cucumbers trying to grow, and the flowers were falling off. So I decided, no, I'm done. Here's the problem. Ants are fine in the garden if they're working and pollinating and doing things. And there's also different types of ants. And Gary knows his ants. I'm not sure which ants these were, but these ants were not my friend. They were not pollinating. They were going to destroy this plant. So yes, I did. I don't care. There it is. I put the ant chalk there. Just one time. They're gone. Can you imagine? This is days and days and days ago. They are gone. I put the ant chalk there. They won't cross the line. They left and they're gone. I know people don't like the ant chalk. You know what? I have used it 20 something years ago. I bought some ant chalk. I still have the same ant chalk because I only use it a couple times a year, and it works for me. Everybody has to do what works for them, and it works for me. But now I'm going to get cucumbers again. The vine is just thriving because the ants were killing the cucumbers. And that's the problem sometimes. If they build a nest, they will redirect the water away from the roots as they tunnel in there and build their little ant farm. And they can find another place because they're not going to be building an ant farm in my garden like that. The other ants that come in here and they're doing other things and pollinating, that's fine. But the ones that are building their nests in there and killing the plant, I've got to get rid of them, and that works for me because they make a trail. They'll even come from underground, but they won't cross that, and you only have to do it once. Once in a while, you have to come back and do it twice, and then they'll just go somewhere else. Okay, some old squash trying to come up, full of tomatoes. The tomatoes are in the pot, but the roots have left and gone into the ground. Again, red Swiss chard, celery that comes up from seed, and this plant that will be taken out. This got deadheaded twice by rabbits, so it's not going to make it. It's not even worth trying. Leaves are all crumbly. As Little Bean calls it, crunchy leaves. Crunchy leaves, I like that. It will have to be composted. I haven't pulled it out yet because I've seen miracles happen. The problem with this particular plant is this is a true zucchini. When you have a true zucchini, it doesn't vine as good as a hybrid zucchini or like pumpkin. A lot of times with your pumpkin plants, because they vine, they take off and they grow these big vines. If something happens and the end is clipped off, they send a new shoot out. No big deal. They send a new shoot out and keep going. I have found that a lot of my zucchini here, I don't know what happens with everybody, they don't always do that because they're a plant that kind of unwinds. And they just keep growing and growing, and sometimes when they get deadheaded, I call it deadheaded, I don't know what they call it, they don't come back. So I don't know, but it did try. It looked like it was going to grow on the side, and then something chewed it again. So I know it's the rabbits. I have actually seen the rabbit in here. I've seen a skunk in here. We've had skunks in here. I don't know what he's looking for. Probably bugs. Skunks are really good. They'll eat snails and slugs and all that too. But I think that was a rabbit, and they like the new flowers and the new shoots coming through. And had that been a hybrid zucchini, it would have probably just kept on going. But being a purebred zucchini, because I bought the seeds, nope. So with that, I think I've covered everything. And they're still building that house, but they're not as noisy as they were 2 weeks ago. And there's that eggplant. Look at that beautiful eggplant. Okay, so with that, I know I've made this way too long, and I'll try to come back in 2 weeks. Some people thought on the other video I was saying goodbye. I'm not saying goodbye. I'm just saying that until December 22nd, if you don't see as many videos come up, that's because I'm going crazy working on Christmas stuff and holiday stuff in general, just holiday stuff. So once that is over, I take a deep breath, and I should have all the time in the world. Ugh, I wish. Gary promised me when he bought a lotto ticket, we don't buy lotto tickets, he was going to win me $1 billion. And you know what he said? It was so funny. We wouldn't change our lives. We would just know that our bills are paid and we could help some people out, and that would be it. Life would be less worrisome. Well, guess what? He didn't win me $1 billion. I got him, though. He's worth more than $1 billion. Anyways, don't tell him I said that. No, I'm kidding. But we don't buy lotto tickets, but it was something we tried, and it was just funny. Everybody was buying. My daughter said, aren't you going to buy the other tickets? They're giving away X $1 million. I said, no, that we went for the big one this time. Of course, the numbers didn't come up onto that one anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. And a lizard on the wall. Look. This wall is full of lizards, and they all stake out their territory. So as I walk through here, a lot of times they're not there right now. They'll be sitting in their territory because they're very territorial and they have their place. Anyways, I have spoken enough. I'm sure that some people are upset it's so long, but that is the garden. It will be very, very interesting to see what happens as we do get into our colder weather. We're not going to get cold until come probably December and into January. January and February are really our coldest months. So I don't know what's going to happen. Will a lot of the garden die back? Will it disappear? Will it look terrible? Will it keep going? But then I don't know what the weather's going to be either. So we'll see. We'll see as it changes. Right now it's doing really good. I'm very pleased. The only things that don't do really well this time of the year is the zucchini, because they really like the warm nights. And in the mid 60s, and right now we are dropping the mid 60s. People are saying warm. In the mid 60s, and we're dropping to the frigid cold of in the 50s. And so they don't really like it that much. So we'll have to see. And then, of course, in December and January, we can get into the 30s, and that's when things may really change. So we'll see what happens with this wall, because that wall retains heat. And I want to start really working on it and get that bathtub set up eventually and see how this works. And now that I've got the hose bib that Gary put over there, and see, he's got that pile of wood chips that he's going to get rid of, he said, soon too. And he's building something along there to plant all kinds of trees. But with the water there, it makes it so much easier to just grab the hose and run out here, and in 5 minutes I got everything watered, instead of going to the other side of the property, turning on the water and dragging a hose 250, 300 feet here. I don't have to do that anymore. So now maybe I will get this done too. So with that, have a wonderful day, and don't forget to eat what you grow. See you in 2 weeks, and yes, you'll see me in between too. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.